All right, Better MMA is back. 299 has just wrapped up, and Sean O'Malley has defeated Chito Vera by unanimous decision, 50-45. Am I that surprised? No, I feel like this is what should have happened. Sean O'Malley really had a great performance, a very entertaining performance. He dominated the fight for all 5 rounds. In the second round, he caught Chito Vera. First round, he really won the round just based upon volume and feeling things out at a slow pace. Eventually, in the second round, as he caught Chito Vera with that knee, he really started to open up and start dominating the fight. Third round, Chito is starting to shell up, and Sean is just dominating the fight on volume and controlling the fight with his feints and, moving Chito to where he wants him because Chito was just shelling up for most of the round. Then we've got round 4. Sean is just winning on his 1-2. And at the end of round 4, you can see Chito Vera catches Sean O'Malley with that glancing left hook as Sean is exiting his right side on the cage. And he hits it with him once, very faintly, and then he goes for it again. And I'm not sure if he hit him with it that second time. But it just goes to show you what I was telling you guys earlier about that look against the fence. It is open, and it was there for Chito Vera in that fight. But Chito Vera had success at the very end of the 5th round. At the very end of the 5th round, it was a very exaggerated version of the 3rd and the 4th round, where Chito Vera had his moments where he was showing his fight and he was showing his grit and his warrior spirit that we all know Chito has. But at the end of the day, it was Sean O'Malley showing off his skill set and his volume. And I really want to give credit to the outstanding boxing that Sean O'Malley displayed in this fight, especially with his body shots. His body shot, his right hand to the body of Chito Vera was landing all night. So it was a good, very well-disguised shot after his 1-2. And I just wanted to mention at the end of the second round, where Sean O'Malley catches Chito Vera with a right hand. And it's in those moments that I was talking to you guys about in this stylistic matchup where Chito Vera, is going to get caught in these moments where Sean may feint, Chito will counter, and then that's Sean's opportunity to pull and then counter again. And that's what he did with that right hand. So there was just these moments where I pointed out in my breakdown video of the matchup beforehand, where I said, look, like these moments are going to be available, and both of them showed up in the fight. So yeah, take that for what you will. I thought it was a great performance from Sean O'Malley. I was hoping for his sake and for everybody's sake that he would be able to get the finish, sort of like close the show as a champion. There's sometimes an expectation for that in boxing, and it's sort of an old school expectation. And I'm sure it's not the most fighter-friendly thing to say, hey, put it all on the line when you're already guaranteeing yourself a win to get the finish. They're already trying to do that. So I'm not going to put any pressure or hate on Sean O'Malley's performance. I think it just goes to show how tough Chito Vera is, because I think eventually most of the people in the bantamweight division would have fallen down and would have lost a TKO or a KO with that amount of damage that Sean O'Malley was accumulating on Chito Vera. Right after the fight, Sean O'Malley displayed some bad body language, and that was mainly due to the hard body shot that Cheeto hit him with at the end of the round. Really, really clean body shot. You could tell it knocked the air out of Sean O'Malley, so as soon as the fight ended, he, sort of went down to his knees on the ground and didn't crawl up into a ball, but just kind of did the Henry Cejudo before a fight, where he just put his legs underneath himself and he was kind of sitting there like a monk trying to regain his breath. So that's just a tough image right after you have such a great performance. But in a sense, it does go to show the legitimacy of his win. But all in all, what it really goes to show for me, guys, is exactly what I wanted to point out, is that he's not the same exact athlete as Conor McGregor is. Sean O'Malley is a volume athlete, and he is successful over 5 rounds. Conor McGregor tends to gas much harder when he goes into the later rounds of his fights, and that is due to that amount of muscle that he carries onto his frame. But Sean O'Malley is not necessarily this knockout punching finisher like a Conor McGregor. So he's not always able to close the show, as you say, or he might not always be able to close the show because he doesn't carry that same weight in his hands as a Conor McGregor. He carries the same weight, more comparable to a Max Holloway at the end of the day. He's kind of got Max Holloway's frame at 135 pounds. So he's got this he's got a lot of power for 135 pounds, but he's not necessarily got the knockout puncher build, if that makes sense. He's got knockout power, but not necessarily the knockout puncher build. And in fighting, where you have to go a hard 25 minutes, it's an advantage to have that, athletic, well-conditioned body that can go a hard 25 rounds and push your cardiovascular system and get the blood rushing to all the muscles throughout your body to be fast and active throughout the fight. But Sean O'Malley is not going to be the next Conor McGregor for the UFC. But he will be most likely the next Israel Adesanya, and I kind of think that's the best case scenario for his career, and I hope that he gets that, because it would be a great pay-per-view draw. I think he could get the same pay-per-view numbers as Israel Adesanya after this performance. It really legitimized him as a champion. It really answered a lot of the questions in terms of that Cheeto Vera loss. And seeing him in a championship fight for 25 minutes. So hopefully we could get him to see him face these guys like Merab or Corey Sandhagen or any of the other great contenders that are coming up at bantamweight right now. But if they decide to let Sean O'Malley go for that belt at 145, I say go for that too. I think it would be a huge fight, and it would be able to build the aura of Ilia Topuria, because I predict Ilia Topuria brutally finishing Sean O'Malley in that fight, whether it be a knockout on the feet or whether he wrestles him to the ground and finishes him with punches on the ground. I see that being a KO or a TKO for Ilia Topuria. So I wouldn't recommend it for Sean O'Malley to move up to 45. I would recommend him to stay down at 35 and sort of become this Israel Adesanya of the 135-pound division, because he's an extremely well-rounded fighter and, more importantly, an extremely good striker. And let's see how long he could stay at the top of this division and how much bread he can make doing it. But moving on to Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint Denis. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't cut up my video in time to give you guys my prediction of this, but it pretty much went the way that I predicted. And that was that Dustin Poirier's veteran metal was going to shine through, and he was going to finish Benoit Saint-Denis when the going gets tough. And the reason why I knew that was going to happen was not because Benoit Saint-Denis isn't a great warrior and have amazing warrior spirit, but simple as he doesn't have the best technique when he's getting into these wars with people. Even in the first round with Dustin Poirier, even though he was like getting these knees in the clinch, he was getting these elbows in the clinch, and that stuff looks great to the judges because you're just like, dang, like this guy's like really going at this dude right now, you know, like it. But not all of those strikes were hitting very cleanly and doing a lot of damage. And that just is something that the trained eye is more used to noticing. So the untrained eye, it may seem like Benoit Saint-Denis was like really giving it to Dustin Poirier in that first round. But Dustin Poirier was aware of himself and everything that was going on throughout that first round. He wasn't rocked or out of it at any moment. And those shots really weren't devastating to him. And I was expecting Dustin to get the finish in the third round. But as I expected, eventually when Benoit is coming in, attacking, he gets clipped with, I believe it was first the uppercut, but then eventually it's that right hook that finishes him off. And it was a great finish from Dustin Poirier. Absolutely great finish from Dustin Poirier. Totally solidifies just what an absolute consistent champion he is for the UFC. Even though he doesn't have a belt, his name carries weight in the UFC, and everybody knows that he is a certified dog, and he's a certified killer in the UFC. One thing I want to say about Benoit Saint-Denis is that he is essentially too good of a fighter for his own good. And that is essentially like very good for us, the fans, because what that means is like he's one of these fighters who's just got that fighting spirit that is so strong to where he's going to put on such a passionate fight that essentially disregards his own safety at all costs so he can inflict damage on his opponent. And it's almost like it's exactly what fans want to see, because as fans we like detach ourselves and we kind of think of these fighters almost like video game characters, like, hey, do this for me because I want to see you do this, it would look cool. But what we're asking them to do is create a car crash with their body. And the fact that Benoit Saint-Denis does that so willingly is really entertaining, and it's why Dana White gave him this opportunity on such a big pay-per-view. And I do think he's deserving of that opportunity. But I do think he got exactly what was coming to him in this matchup. Dustin Poirier is way too seasoned and been at the top of this division for too long and already taken his losses and learned his lessons and had to fix his defenses and had to fix the holes in his game, to where Benoit, he just got the wrong end of the stick with this matchup. It was still a great matchup, still a great fight. Benoit still could have finished the fight, I'm sure in a different scenario, in a different universe. So still a great matchup for everybody. Benoit is in his 30s though. So I'm not really sure where Benoit goes from here in terms of his career. Simply because he only has a few years left. So when you really think about it in that sense, let's just put 5 years on it. What do those 5 fights look like? And the same thing kind of goes for Dustin Poirier. we have to think about this. What do these 5 fights look like? But mainly with Benoit Saint-Denis, I just want to put this thought into everybody's mind. Like, we could all love Benoit Saint-Denis because he's like this movie character that's just so entertaining and so great to watch and just like a real-life badass. But this guy is bound and determined. He's taken so much damage in his last few fights, and he's bound to take a lot more damage in his future fights. So who do we match him up with, guys? Do we match him up with Justin Gaethje next? Do we match him up with Rafael Fiziev next, maybe? I know Fiziev is coming off this injury, but we'll see when his turnaround is. Do we give him Mateusz Gamrot? Who do we give him? Okay, Michael Venom Page versus Kevin Holland pretty much went as expected. I was expecting Michael Venom Page's karate style to be working against Kevin Holland simply because of how we saw Stephen Thompson use that same sort of style successfully against Kevin Holland. So I was not surprised to see Michael Venom Page get that decision. Good for him. Do I think he's worthy of being in the top 15 of the welterweight division? Probably not. I'm sure he will get finished sometime around that like 15 to 20 echelon. Yeah, all I could say is like I just wish one of them finished the other one. As a fan, it was still a pretty entertaining fight, even though it went to a decision. So not that bad. For it being on a main card, you have higher expectations for it, but not that bad. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. I mean, JDM pretty much had that pay-per-view main card moment. And I'm sure Dana will give him a little bit of something. Even if he doesn't get the bonus officially, I'm sure he'll get a little bit of cash because he pretty much showed up to that fight and was like, you know what, I'm losing a decision right now, but I still want to finish this guy. And that's something that you love to see in a fighter because you hate to see when a fighter is down 2 rounds and it's late in that 3rd round and they're getting out-wrestled and, you start to see that defeat in their eyes and it starts to sink in. So Gilbert Burns was doing everything that he should have done in that fight. I was watching him on the Renato Moicano podcast before the fight, and Renato was saying, take him down. And Gilbert was kind of, silently, acknowledging, not trying to show too much, but Gilbert had a very solid game plan going in. But still at the same time, Gilbert was trading on the feet and making it a great pay-per-view matchup, which I think is just Gilbert is just, he's got that real fighter in him. He's going to trade hands no matter what. This dude's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, but he really likes to scrap like that. So, Gilbert Burns is just such a savage for trading with JDM. But at the end of the day, it is those, grappling instincts that were the end of him. And JDM saw that takedown coming. When he got back up, Gilbert tried to re-engage the takedown. JDM hit him with the knee, super clean knee. And then the follow-up shots that I think it was Mike Beltran, the referee, JDM was just good douching Gilbert Burns with some mean follow-up shots. And JDM has got some huge fists and just molly-whopping Gilbert Burns with these follow-up shots and elbows. And Mike Beltran, the referee, I think it was, he made sure Gilbert Burns was dead, man. And again, as a UFC fan, I am not complaining. That it was savage. JDM called out Shavkat Rakhmonov. I think that's an absolutely amazing fight for a title eliminator. I don't even know what a Bilal Muhammad is. Okay, and Leon Edwards doesn't know what a Bilal Muhammad is either. So let's just keep it that way, guys. Like, I don't even know what that is. Let's do JDM, Shavkat, title eliminator fight. They will fight Leon Edwards sometime soon down the line. Last thing I want to say about JDM is, he is a real young hitter. I don't know if he's on some, special secret sauce or something to be, such a dog. But, you got some dudes like Jeff Neal that are kind of, real-life tough guys where it's, in real life, no way in hell you would want to be messing with, Jeff Neal. And, Jeff Neal would be, throwing down and, getting real in the streets, and laying down the law in the streets. But, in the cage against these dudes like Stephen Thompson, Ian Gary, he sort of just, does a high guard and then feints, jumps in with his feet, and then jumps back out. He's not really that tough like that. Jeff Neal, no face. You can't catch me in the streets, dog. Ha ha. But JDM is that real life tough guy. That's what I want to say about that. So big ups to you Australian dudes. His nose is so mean looking. So yeah, JDM's a mean dude. And let's see him fight Shavkat, because that's the thing that we need to see go up against Shavkat. We were hoping Jeff Neal would be that high caliber, the gadoosh Shavkat. And Jeff Neal put on a great fight. Respect to Jeff Neal. But I think JDM hits different. And Shavkat likes to exchange. So we'll see if Shavkat exchanges with this fool. And we've seen Shavkat clipped on the regional scene. And Jeff Neal got in some good shots too. So that would be a great fight. We'll see if JDM can exchange with him or if Shavkat will wrap him up and sub him. Moving on to Yan versus Yadong. I have a history with Peter Yan. So when they were announcing the fighters and when everything was starting, I was really, starting to think about the 20-minute documentaries I was starting to think about the YouTube documentaries that would be made surrounding Peter Yan going on a 4-fight losing streak and what happened to Peter Yan and how he was a champion, a young champion in his 20s. And now he's going on this losing streak and it looks like he might even be cut from the UFC. Who knows? And this was really going to be the story of Peter Yan. And I was terrified for him because I was a fan of Peter Yan throughout his come up. I was a fan of him all throughout the Uriah Faber fight. I knew he was going to dog Faber. I, saw his, Jimmy Rivera fights, his John Dodson fights, and started watching highlights of him. And I was like, this was a very, very bad matchup for Uriah Faber. They put Uriah against a very, very young dog in this fight. And Peter Yan made quick work of him and then, got his title shot after that. And then he ended up, of course, going on his losing streak. So I'm very happy that Peter Yan got the win. At the end of the day, this fight was a lot cooler than I think we all gave it credit for before when the week started, because it got lost in all the 299 hype. But with Uriah Faber, being head coach of Song Yadong, a Team Alpha Male, and Song Yadong is pretty much the young gun representing Team Alpha Male right now, so he's looking to avenge the loss of Uriah Faber. And then he came in with the bleach blonde hair and like the Mortal Kombat sleeveless look, so it was a lot cooler of a fight in hindsight. And I think a lot of these fights, like the Curtis Blades Jailton Almeida fight, we'll get to that later. A lot of these fights, if they were main events and they had these same results, they would really shake up the MMA community in a bigger way. Even this Yan decision, it's big enough just that he's been able to break his losing streak and do it against such a young gun like Song Yadong. So who knows what that fight would have looked like over 5 rounds. I think the most questionable round of the fight, of course, would be round 2. I say that Yan was controlling that to the end of round 2 more. I believe he got a takedown at the end of that round, if I'm remembering correctly now. But so happy that Yan got the win. Not gonna lie. Moving down the list, Blades and Almeida. This was the absolute highlight of the prelims. I was expecting Blades to be able to piece Almeida up on the feet. That did not happen whatsoever. But I'm happy that Almeida simply got finished because I don't think he is a true heavyweight. And I think we saw that, hey, dude, you are the bigger guy when you're down at 205. And your size advantage means a lot more down there, and you could take down guys a lot easier because that became a problem for him and lost in the fight today against Curtis Blades. I think like it seems like a setback, but if they could just recalibrate, go down to 205, that would be the best move for them. I thought Almeida actually looked like he was just carrying too much fat on him. For this guy getting all of these like steroid accusations, let's get him on a really nice diet too. And let's see what those roids and what those genetics would look like on a really, really nice diet. And let's get this guy diced up and in really, really great condition. And let's see what he looks like at 205. And I'm sure he'll be a beast. So let's let this loss sort of create out of the ashes a phoenix of 205-pound Jailton Almeida. And at the end of the day, I believe this was the plan for them anyways, was to get high up into the rankings at heavyweight and then to go down to light heavy. So I'm sure they could get a top 15 ranked fighter to fight them at light heavyweight. And if not, they could get somebody right outside of that. And then he could get a 15 ranked fighter. Gamrot versus RDA. All I got to say about this was it was just as boring as I think we all expected it to be. Shout out to RDA for just putting up such a close fight at his age, man. The way that Gamrot won that fight, me personally, like winning a fight in that way doesn't really get you anywhere with me. And I don't really think it gets you anywhere with Dana White either, because I'm just unmoved by that performance. There's nothing that I could really grasp to what was great about Gamrot's performance. I just think about him winning the fight was just him, that chain wrestling, getting to another single leg, holding RDA up against the fence, trying to go for that takedown, trying to drag RDA down, or when he's got him down and RDA's trying to get him back up, just trying to move to get him back down again. I know for wrestling heads, it's a lot more interesting and entertaining, so I won't really hate too hard on it, because I do respect wrestling, but I don't know what we do about those types of performances. It was just a weird fight for me. Kyler Phillips, don't really have much to say about his performance either. I think he just wastes a lot of energy with his movements. I understand that welterweight and bantamweight are very, very different divisions. But if you look at the way JDM might as well be on a full bottle of NyQuil, the way he's so smoothly switching stances you don't even notice, and doing it so swiftly, where it's not necessarily slow, but his movements are just so swift that he's not jolting or really switching back and forth very quickly, so it, alerts his opponent. I think that's something that Kyler Phillips can learn from, because he's always bouncing up and down, bouncing back and forth, and getting himself into a lot of rhythm step situations. If you're familiar with Coach Barry Robinson, when you're bouncing back and forth, and you're not in like a karate stance, you're very susceptible for somebody to close that distance very quickly, and you're like bouncing back and forth like a pendulum. So if your head is jumping forward because your body is jumping forward, your head is jumping forward with your body, somebody can time you up and catch you. So Kyler, he kind of just like reminds me of, just like when you're button spamming, like on a fighting game, just like spamming the buttons on what you can throw. And for everything that he throws, he doesn't really finish that much. So Kyler didn't really impress me that much with his fight. Moving down the line, Michel Pereira looked great. He got a body shot KO against a soft-bodied fighter, and Michel Oleksiejczuk. I like Michel Oleksiejczuk. I think he's a dog. I think he's got great cardio, and he's just like a beast. He's a beast of a fighter. He's a great fighter. But yeah, good for Michel Pereira. We'll see him further on at 85. And the Cuban, Robelis Dismain, starts the card right with just getting a quick 20-second knockout. I just say throw him in the top 15. Screw it, guys. Let's give him somebody legitimate. Let's just do it, because there are no real gatekeepers at the heavyweight division outside the top 15. So let's give him somebody and see where we're at, because we didn't learn anything. And he boxes like a Taekwondo guy. He doesn't really have fundamental boxing. But let's see how far he can go. I think a guy like Cyril Gane would probably teach him a lesson. But who knows, guys? Who knows? Maybe this guy is like Ngannou 2.0, like they say. Thank you guys so much for the support. Like the video if you got to the end of the video. Comment your thoughts and what you thought about the fights. Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Peace.